So welcome to this podcast. This week we're going to be doing business structures and agency. The two are related. You need to understand agency to understand how business structures can work or don't work sometimes. And we're going to split it into 3 or 4 parts. We'll see how we go. The first part I want to look at is actually business structures. So what are we actually aiming to do? We want to give us an overview of 4 kinds of business structures. We want to know about sole traders, about partnerships, about companies, and about trusts. And then we're going to move into agency, and I'll cover that overview when we get to that part of the podcast. By the end of this, hopefully you'll have an understanding of the various kinds of business structures, their advantages and disadvantages, and when you might actually choose one kind of business structure over the other. As part of that, you need to understand the legal relationships between the various parties, and in particular you need to understand the legal relationship between an agent and a principal. It's a very important part of what we're going to deal with. That includes things like what an agent can and can't do, their duties, and when an agent can be liable. Then we'll need to be able to know how to apply all of that knowledge to resolve legal issues around agency. There's some readings that we actually have. Note that we're leaving a few pages out there. There are some things we don't need to know for this particular course. So really this week is about understanding when we go into business, we have some choices about how we're actually going to operate those businesses. And that choice can be determined by a number of factors. We're going to look at the different legal structures that are available to provide us the answer to the question that we might have: what form should my business actually take? So let's get started into looking at business structures. One of the most important legal questions that you face when you're setting up a business is what kind of structure should that business take? As I've mentioned, that there are 4 options here. We've got sole trade. Well, there are more than 4, but the 4 key ones that we use a lot are sole trader, partnership, company, and trust. Often you can use a combination of these, but we're going to deal with them as distinct types of business structures that we can actually use. The choice that you make will have important implications for the business. Things like how easy it is to set up the business, financial and legal liability for you personally and for the business, for how much tax you pay and when you pay it, whether you can raise finance, and some ongoing regulatory obligations that will flow from your choice of structure. So the first kind of structure that we have is the simplest form. It's the sole trader. So when you have a sole trader, it's where someone, the individual, actually goes into business themselves and they operate themselves. Now, a sole trader can do many things. A sole trader can employ people, raise funds, but really they're limited in how they can raise funds, right? They can really only get debt or whatever money they have. Big benefits of sole trader are those low entry costs, low ongoing costs. You have control over the operation of the business because you're the owner, and you make all the profits out of that particular business. Some negatives come with it though. Because it's you operating the business, when you take on a debt, a business debt, so you take out a lease or you buy a piece of equipment, you're responsible for the debt as an individual because there's no separate legal status. So while it's the business buying it, you're entirely liable. So there's unlimited personal liability for the debts and business obligations. However, no formal legal requirements to establish this kind of business. So it's easy, cheap to do. Big problem, unlimited liability for you as a person. And here we see all of this stuff summarized. Advantages, very few formalities. Full ownership means you get control. It also means you get all the profit. Disadvantages, personal liability for all of the business debts, and that liability is unlimited. Limited sources of capital. You have the owner's money, plus what you can get in terms of debt. And you do have some limitations in that one person mightn't have all the skills that you need to actually run a successful business.